All right, we are recording, so I didn't do that again.
Yeah. Don't want to lose another stripe on our white belt.
Because that's
is my camera on? Oh, duh.
No. There you are.
There
Now
we
we can
go.
see you.
Hey,
Nice.
push that out of the way. I'm just gonna move my laptop. There we go. That'll work. How's everything going in Florida, huh?
Good.
Man, it's going good.
The weather's
Nice.
beautiful.
Weather's beautiful. Training crazy.
Nice.
Jim's hopping.
Oh man, that's good. Everyone's still thirsty for jiu-jitsu.
Oh yeah, I think even
Yeah.
more so after COVID. Honestly.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, to be honest with you.
Well,
That's
and
cool.
I mean, I think there's also a big explosion in just fitness in general. Because it's not just the jiu-jitsu schools. I mean, you're seeing virtually all the schools exploding right now.
Yeah, that's true. Especially in the areas that are opened up, you know.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of stuff like you're seeing a resurgence in in boxing, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
Like in our area, it's amazing how many boxing gyms are opening up that are boxing exclusive right now that weren't there, 3 years ago. So
Yeah. I think there's been like a resurgence in combat sports and martial arts just because of the UFC. Like I feel like there's even probably been more of an interest in karate and all that stuff now. It just kind of started pulling everything up with it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
And that's the thing is it's interesting how that comes about. I mean, because originally when jiu-jitsu hits the scene, there are no jiu-jitsu schools. So the karate schools brought jiu-jitsu in. Now jiu-jitsu is the dominant one. But now it's interesting because you're seeing the jiu-jitsu schools now bringing in, or bringing back karate, boxing, and programs of that nature. I mean, so it's actually kind of interesting.
And I think it has, and I don't know how long it will be, but it has a little bit of an effect where I feel like the martial arts that are being folded back in or that are starting to spring up are a little more realistic. There's still like the MMA cardio classes and that kind of stuff, but that's like there's always going to be that kind of stuff. But it seems like there's a little bit better of a reality twist on the martial arts too. There's still the death touch guys and all that, but in general, you'll see schools training, like they'll train some actual things that seem like it's a little more effective now when you watch them, so that's kind of cool too. So that's neat.
So how's Nashville?
Dude, I love Nashville, man. It's so great.
Because the last time we talked to you guys were talking about moving.
Yeah.
And now here we are. I mean, you're not just that you've moved, but you're now fully in, school's operational.
Yeah. We decided, we thought about it. I can't remember the last time we chatted, but Stella and I decided to move in December of 2020. We're like, okay, we're going to do it. Like, we're really going to do it. So we planned it for June. It's like, okay, we're going to give ourselves 6 months to like get everything squared up and then go. But really it wasn't enough time. Like, it was still pretty damn wild to make that move and get the business set up. Like, I think adding that on top of it and getting the gym in Stockton kind of set up to keep rolling. And it was pretty crazy. I mean, there's still some things that are unwinding that I'm getting better at, like calibrating and figuring out. But in general, it was a lot, but super worth it. Like the first couple of months, my kids were real pissed at me, like super mad at me, dude. Super mad. My 15-year-old and my 18-year-old were just like, dude, really upset. And I think their perception of Nashville was that it was just going to be out in the country somewhere, know?
Gotcha.
And once they started to kind of get a feel for it and realize, like, no, you're actually in a really neat area that's like way better than Stockton. You know what I mean? They started to come around. So my youngest son, we live in Franklin, which is like 20 minutes from from downtown Nashville. So
Okay.
we're not right in Nashville, but we're in a really nice community. And he started wrestling at school. He started making friends, and now
Nice.
he's like, his life is so much better than it was in Stockton. It's unbelievable. Like,
Nice.
I'm
Yeah.
so glad I didn't have to send him to high school out there, because that
Yeah.
I was like, you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
it's just tricky. So
Yeah.
well, you guys know how the area is, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And it's even
Well, I mean,
worse.
I hate
It's
to say it,
crazy.
we know, but we don't know. I mean, because
You moved to Florida like 10 years ago, 15 years ago,
13.
13 years.
13. Yeah, it's been a while. Dang.
But I
you
mean,
got
but
out
even
of
with
the
that,
distance good.
when we lived in Stockton, so we didn't grow up in Stockton.
I see.
So basically, that's what I say. We know Stockton, but we don't know Stockton. There's a lot about Stockton that
Yeah.
that we never got to experience.
We lived there for about 4 years. So we
Okay.
experienced
Enough.
some of it.
You got
Yeah.
enough. Yeah. You got
And
3
so
years
I
too
mean,
many.
we we visited Stockton a lot. We lived in Stockton for a period of years. I mean, but I mean, realistically speaking, it's like
Yeah.
vacationing in a spot. Stockton
Yeah.
used to be the place that
Yeah.
that we go to on the weekend. I mean, that was for us. That was a big city. I mean,
Sure. Because you guys were in
so-
like Valley Springs or something like that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Like I said, that for us was the big city. I mean, that
Yeah.
was cruising on the Miracle Mile,
Yeah.
going to the
Right.
mall. I mean,
Right.
that was
Right.
the shit. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, it
Yeah.
was fun, but it's
Yeah.
quite a bit different now. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, Nashville's really great, man. The community's a lot different, and people are friendlier. And that took me a little time to adjust to, just because I just was on guard, like when
Yeah.
people offer to do nice
Okay.
things
Oh,
for
yeah.
you, it's like, what do you
You're like, what's
want?
the catch?
Yeah, exactly. And I had to kind of realize, like, not everybody's on the take. Some people are
Yeah.
really just trying to be nice out here, and that's okay too, So
We
then I
had kind
started
of a
feeling,
similar
ahead.
transition out here. And part of it too is we had to slow down.
yeah,
Florida
right.
people are not in a hurry for anything.
Yeah, right.
And California, it's like, I gotta go constantly. You're just like constantly going at like
Yeah.
light speed. And we came
Yeah.
out here, we're like, oh, okay, we gotta breathe, we
okay,
gotta slow down.
no, let's be real. Okay, so as an employer, everybody's really slow.
Yes.
The customer expectation, because
Oh,
very
right.
few people that we run into are actual Floridians.
Right.
So their expectation is still the New York expectation. It's still
Gotcha.
the wherever they came from expectation. But once somebody becomes a worker, then they have that Florida
Floridian. Yeah.
I'm
yeah.
gonna go at my pace.
There's some of that here too, to be honest with you. Like, that's one thing that we've noticed, to the point to where I started feeling like I'm the jerk everywhere we go, because I'm like,
Right.
come on, like, what are we doing? Let's go, let's move. But I think when you're in California, you kind of get sucked into that bubble, and you think that it's everywhere's like that, and it's just not.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting part is, so unless you're in maybe like a San Francisco or maybe in LA or something of that nature. Okay, so when you're in Stockton, you're from Stockton.
Yeah, right.
You're not talking to every day where 19 out of 20 people you bump into are from somewhere else that came to
Right.
Stockton thinking that this is their way to move up.
Yeah, right. Right.
When we came to Florida, I mean, no exaggeration, virtually every person I bumped into is not from here.
Yeah.
They're not from Florida. I mean, it's to me, and I mean, in the company I worked in, the people within the office and everything else, I think within the entire office, I think we had 2 people that were actually from Florida, like actually born and raised in Florida, but they weren't even from the area that we were even in.
Yeah.
So, and then every place I was going, it's that kind of thing. It's like being in Vegas and having those little name tags that says, your name, and then it says the city and state you're from.
Right. Right.
You know,
Right. There's a lot of that here. I would say probably half of my students are not from this area, and they're new within the last 2 years.
Yeah.
A lot of transplants. It's pretty crazy how many people have a similar story too, which is, I was living in California. It's mostly California and Chicago that I hear the stories about. And they're like, man, it just got too crazy for me and I couldn't do it. Had to get out. which is crazy because there's a lot of 10th Planet dudes from Southern California that are moving out this way, and you would think that they would be super into all the crazy stuff that's going on just because they're 10th Planet. They seem wild, but they're not. They're like super conservative. Like, I gotta get
Right.
out of this crazy state. Yeah. It's pretty interesting the way everything's shaking out, but I like it back here. It feels like I live in America again, which
Yeah.
is nice, man. So
Yeah.
Well, and that's where during this whole COVID thing, it's been weird for us. I mean, I have to say weird for us because we watch everything else happening on the news.
yeah.
We
Because
experienced.
Florida didn't change that much.
Okay,
Right.
you keep saying that, but for
Well,
the first
okay.
year, yes, it did.
We had like one solid month of
No, ma'am.
restrictions.
No, ma'am. Okay. When we pulled the cage out of storage and put it into room 1, and we were sitting at about 8 months in, and still we're only having about 10 to 15 people coming into a training session.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that it wasn't affected.
Yeah.
Don't tell me when you're working a second job for how long. Don't tell me when I'm still in the pay reduction and everything else that the effects were only for about a month.
She's like, whatever.
I think you have a COVID fog over your memory.
Well, you're looking at the bright side, so but I noticed it a lot in California, although Stockton still kind of had the weird, like, get out of my business kind of attitude for a lot of things. So
Yeah.
after a while, we realized, like, we blacked out the windows and we were just running normal classes. And
Yeah.
we told our students, like, just come in street clothes. Don't, like, come in pairs or groups, just, like, come in solo. Don't park
Right.
by each other, like that kind of thing.
But even
And then
then,
after-
though, it was reduced. I mean, like for us,
yeah.
we were still technically running classes,
Yeah.
but I mean,
It was
we
like
were
30% capacity, it
yeah,
felt like.
we were way under
Yeah.
what we were doing originally, way under.
We found out that the church next to us and the nail salon on the other side of us were also running their businesses
Nice.
like down low. So we just kind of had a thing, and everyone was just like, be quiet, like, don't say
Everybody had an
anything.
understanding.
Yeah. So and it mostly worked out. Luckily, Stockton didn't get too crazy. The masking requirements were there, and people really pushed that. But the snitching on businesses being open and stuff, it wasn't too bad. And the sheriff wasn't really doing much about it. I know, like, up in Portland, the 10th Planet up there, somebody drove by and saw people in there and, like, ratted them out. They
And
got
that
in
whole
trouble.
area was doing weird stuff, though. I mean, that whole Portland up to Seattle was just.
Ugh.
I mean,
Can you imagine living in a city like that? And then, especially, say you're born and raised in that area, or you have a business down there, and then some bullshit thing like some autonomous zone opens up, and now suddenly you're like,
yeah,
have to deal with a bunch of anarchy. That's insane.
yeah.
That's crazy. And it's a real anti-gun area. Those people should have protected their shit, man, the best they could have. It's easy to say, right? It's another thing when it's actually happening. But
Yeah.
I know the Long Beach guys, when they were rioting, those guys protected their gym. They stood out front with ARs, and their gym still got burned down.
Yep.
Somebody started a fire down the block and it spread. And but yeah, it's, I don't know, man. That shit was wild. That was like a little preview of what could happen.
Yeah.
Like, really, right? So I don't know, man.
So what was it like when you guys, you're moving out to Nashville, I'm sure you scouted the area as far as saying, this looks like a good place, I want to live, things of that nature. But it's also different when you're looking to establish, your new school and everything else. I mean, what was the actual starting of 10th Planet Nashville like when you guys were doing that? I mean, did it hit the ground running? Were people like already hungry for training?
I kind of thought they would be. I wasn't positive. I really wasn't. I didn't have many contacts out here. So my sister-in-law lives out here with her husband, and my sister-in-law's lived out here for about 6 or 7 years. And so I did know one other person that I was introduced to that's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, trains in the gi. And I talked to him a little bit about what do you think the area is like? Do you think, gi jiu-jitsu would be popular? And he had a pretty positive opinion on it. And
Right.
I think 10th Planet's such a strong brand that I had
Yes.
confidence that I would at least get attention. You still got to do the work. You still got to be functional. You got to,
Right.
do all that stuff to make it work. But so I kind of felt like, okay, I'll at least be able to get some attention. I don't know what I'm going to do with the attention, but I think I can gather it. So I had confidence in that. But, in terms of like, we looked at like 20 places out here. We flew out. So we found a place to live, like a residence to live in, I would say around March, right? And we were moving out in June. So we had a place, but we didn't have a business location. So we made a trip out here in May. And we're like, okay, we scouted. We went to like 25 locations and all over Nashville. And I didn't really know the city of Nashville super well. So that was kind of nice to kind of drive around, check out
Right,
the
yeah.
areas, kind of learn it a little bit better. And I couldn't find anything. And I was like, damn, man, this is either the agents weren't interested, like, and I kind of got a tiny bit of that vibe, like, oh, you're from California, I'm going to drag my feet a little bit, to be honest.
Gotcha.
And I can't say that for sure, but it kind of felt that way a little bit. Not with everyone, but with a couple people I worked with. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not sure what we're going to do. And there was one particular location that looked like a kind of just a business building. And I kept passing over it and I wouldn't even like open the thing up and look at it. Just like, that's not for us. And I started getting desperate. And so
and usually that building comes with a high price tag too.
No shit, right? So, right,
Yeah.
Which I was worried about that. So we came out in May, we scouted it out and we left. I was hoping to sign a lease when I was out here. That's what I really wanted to do, or at least get some kind of agreement in place, even a handshake or something. And I didn't get anything. So we went back home and I'm kind of stressing because like, damn, we're going to move. And I wanted to have it lined up because I wanted to get it going in the summer. That was my plan. And so back in Stockton, I ended up checking out the one location that I kept skipping over. Come to find out, the unit used to be a yoga studio and it was already set up for jiu-jitsu.
Nice.
It had like built-in cubbies, a changing room, a front desk, a little pro shop area. Like,
nice.
It was nice. Yeah, right. I'm like,
Right,
what?
wow.
What was? I wish I would have saw this first, right? So, I had him send me a video, and I kind of looked at the video. I had my brother-in-law check it out, and he wasn't super big on it, which made me a little concerned. Like, damn. But it's right on the border of South Nashville and Brentwood. And Brentwood's like country music star town. It's super nice. It's one of the nicer areas that you could be in. And this particular location is right on the border. So I decided to hit them up and I talked to them and they were really flexible, which I was really surprised. And they cut me a pretty decent deal. So I was able to hit the ground running pretty fast. Like once we got out here, I didn't have mats yet, which sucked because they were on back order from COVID. And, we could get vinyl, but we can't get foam. Oh, we got the foam, but we don't have the glue. And so I was a little worried because we were out there and it was August and I had the location, but I didn't have mats. So I couldn't have classes really. And I was advertising on Facebook. I was taking signups. And I was going down the National MMA just to train, and get in on their open mats and stuff. And I met a guy down there named JD, trained with him one time, just casual. Hey, cool, man. Yeah, awesome. He asked me what I was doing. I explained it to him. And he goes, let me get your number. Gave him my number. A couple of weeks later, he calls me. He said, hey, don't go to National MMA Saturday morning. There's always something going on downtown Nashville. He's like, you're not going to be able to park. They got it all blocked up. So I told him, hey, I got I had a 10 by 10 wrestling mat. So we can do some one-on-one training in my gym. Like, he's like, okay, great. I'll hit you up tomorrow morning. So he calls me in the morning and he goes, hey, how come you don't have mats? I said, well, they're ordered, but Dahmer's taking their time. It's back ordered and blah, blah, blah. And I had a big grand opening seminar plan with Boogie and he's going to fly out. And I already had advertised it. I'm like, what if I don't have mats for this?
Right.
Like, I'm going to be an
you have
idiot.
a 10 by 10
Right.
to have your seminar on.
Okay, so you changed it to Extreme 10th Planet.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I was starting to get worried a little bit, to be honest with you. And JD called me in the morning. We were going to train, and he's like, well, I know you don't have mats. He's like, I got 3 brand new rolls of mats that I was using in my workshop when the gyms were shut down, and I want to bring them out and have them set. Like, we'll set them up. You could use them till your mats come in. And I told him no. I was like, nah, dude, that's okay. Like, because I didn't know this guy, and I'm just thinking like, what's going on? Like, because if someone did that in Stockton, you'd be like, dude, like, what are you trying to do? You know?
Yeah.
And so I told him no, and I thought about it, and I'm like, well, I really need these mats. And he's offering to do a nice thing, and I'm trying to like have a better attitude, not so much of a 209, like, you know, kind of an attitude. So I called him up, and I'm like, JD, I'm sorry, man. You know, I kind of explained to him my decision-making process, what I was thinking. And I told him, like, dude, I need those mats. Like, I'll take them. If you're willing to let me use them, I'll use them. So we went and got them and installed them, and I was able to start classes early. So I just called the students and said, hey, we're going to be opened on like a light schedule right now. I got temporary mats in place. I want to take care of them. I don't want to mess them up and overuse them, because they really were brand new, you know, like not a scuff mark on it. And I didn't want to put the first, you know. So I was able to get it opened, and got a good student body kind of foundation going. And eventually the mats came in 2 days before the boogie seminar. So we got them set up, and yeah. So
that's a lot of work to do, though, 2 days before.
Man, just to set up a business is so much work. Like, you got to set up the legal structure and the banking and the membership. Like, there's so much to it that I think when people think about opening a gym, they think like, well, I could fight or I could use jiu-jitsu. I just open my own gym and like do my thing. And it kind of made me, and it has, this is not obviously not the first gym, but it's made me appreciate all of the gym owners that I've trained with over over my, you know, martial arts kind of
definitely
training.
changes the perspective.
It sure does. It to a point to where I can see where there were decisions in the past that I wasn't happy about, but I see their perspective now.
Right.
And I look at the decisions a little differently, but I guess that's experience and wisdom, and it kind of goes with the territory, you know, but
well, and being in their shoes too, and realizing, there's rent and all this other, you know, taxes, all this other
all kinds of things,
all has to go into. It's not just throw some mats on the floor and train.
Yeah, and I think
which is what most people think it is.
Yes.
I mean, that's
and like, if you're an assistant instructor, you're at a gym and they let you teach a couple classes a week, that's the best gig, because you come in, you show all the cool shit. Everyone loves you. You never have to give anyone bad news. You don't have to collect any money. You don't have to pay taxes. None of that shit, right?
You gotta be the bad guy. I mean, at all.
And you develop this idea where you go like, I could do this. You know, these people love what I'm doing. Like, dude, they should do it like I'm doing it. These owners don't know shit, you know. And then,
well, then unfortunately, the dark side to that is the business owner now is like, cool, I've got so and so, you know, helping me run classes. So and so now is the face of your school.
Yeah,
everybody loves them. You're the dickhead owner that's constantly having to chase people and everything else. And then the super dark side, your helper leaves with this incredible perception from all this, you know, because everybody loves them, man. They're just they're cool dude, everything else. And then they go open up their own place, and you just facilitated this relationship, you know.
So I think, and this is something that I really believe gym owners have to build into their business, is you have to build that process into your business. You have to realize that if you build some dude up, there's going to come to a point where they're probably going to want to do their own thing, and you accept it. Like, I'm trying to help guys where I tell them like, hey, when you get up to that spot, come talk to me. We'll figure out a path for you to do this. I would rather help you do it and build you up to do it and get you set up right, then you leave as an enemy. I'd rather have you go as a friend.
Correct.
You know, as an ally. And that works good and bad. Like I've had it
Yes.
where people have been like, yeah, I want to do, yeah, let's do that. And then they still kind of do janky shit. And it's like, dude,
Oh
it
yeah.
doesn't work like that, you
It's
know?
like, it's like, yeah, I want to do that. You know, open up everything to me, show me how to run the business, tell me, give you all your contacts. Oh yeah, but I don't want to do it under your name. I want it to be
Right.
mine, not really
Right.
connected with you guys. Because I mean, that's one of the ultimate, hopes is that
Right.
as
Right. Yeah.
you help build them up, you're teaching them, which everybody thinks that this is the analogy I love. Nobody at Applebee's, is concerned that you're eating at Chili's. Oh, but nobody at Applebee's is taking you into the kitchen and showing you how to cook, how they're building their
Right.
menu, what their pricing structure is based on,
Yeah.
things of that nature. It's a completely different animal
Yeah.
when you bring that individual into the fold.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's different when you have somebody that legit, they just come in, they train, a real relationship, they leave.
Right.
It's different when you bring that person and actually start to tell people, hey, trust this individual.
Yeah.
They're if they say whatever, take it on my word that they're
Yeah.
speaking for me in my absence.
Right. Right. You're kind of putting your stamp on them. Yeah.
That's a different animal.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that part of the game is probably the hardest part to get is let's sit down, let me explain to you how this really works. That
Right.
The secret sauce.
Yeah.
Like that's not the easy stuff. But I find that like a lot of people don't want to know that. They say they want to learn it, but they're really kind of like, yeah. They want to do like
Because
the
they
front
think they
stuff.
already know better. They think they know better.
Yeah.
They haven't already. So what they don't realize is most of us as gym owners have already made all of those mistakes
Yeah.
that they're about to make.
Right.
Like,
Well,
Yeah.
But the mistakes that we made, maybe we made the same mistakes as the former instructor, gym owner, and whatever that helped us out
Yeah.
kind of in the
Mhm.
process, or the people that we saw
Mhm.
going down those pathways. And then we kind of compounded and did our own mistakes on top of
we
that.
made terrible
Yeah.
business decisions when we opened the gym.
I
in
gave
California.
everything away. I mean,
Yeah.
We
Right.
lost our butts on that gym
Yeah.
in California because we didn't understand the business. We were like, we're martial artists.
Yeah.
We love
Right.
martial arts. We love teaching, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And yeah.
How do
Now-
you keep, this is something that we talk about, like how do you, because you kind of go for it, I think in the beginning it's driven by passion
Yes.
Yes.
and love for like
Yes.
and that's awesome, but then over time it has to be driven by process.
Right.
Yes.
Like if you
Well,
don't
because
have
unfortunately, that passion is what got you in, and it's what will also crush you.
right,
because
right,
The part that every person goes into this believing is that every person coming in that door, every single one of them, is a lifelong member that
right,
that you're
right.
gonna pour yourself into them, and
Right.
and you're gonna see this entire blossoming and everything else.
Yeah,
And they forget that maybe 1% of every person who actually comes through that door will even give you the time of day.
right,
Like in
Yeah.
1 year, how many of those people will not even be in that building?
right, right. Which is what you see over when you're there day in and day out over the time
Yeah.
over a 3-year span, you start to understand like most of these people won't be here in 9 months,
Right.
Yeah.
which is
And it doesn't-
it's crazy,
It doesn't mean you don't give them any less. I mean, you do end up saying, yeah, I'm not really going to give all of myself, knowing that in a year, that
Yeah.
I may not be here, or you start reading the signs.
Sure. Yeah.
and-
Right.
And then unfortunately, then there's the attrition rate of the drop off as the promotions start to hit.
Yeah. Sure.
Blue belt, blue
the
goes-
stereotype of the blue belt disappearing. I mean, that stereotype as a foundation in reality. I mean, there's
it
a lot
does,
of people
man.
that quit at blue.
Yeah, there are. The other thing, how do you, so if if the passion drives it, gets you to the dance, essentially, right? But you know, you got to build some good processes in place. How do you find the balance though of not becoming butthole gym owner? You know, that's all about like process and the rules. How do
Right.
you like have the passion and because it's hard because the people that really train, the 1%, you know,
Right.
like those are people you're really connected to. And I appreciate those people and I value them and I admire their dedication and commitment because I know how hard it is. It's not
Right.
easy. Like train,
Yeah.
it's hard, you know. So how do you get connected to those people like family? But then there's a whole other revolving cast of people that they want to be like that. They want to be treated like, oh, I'm in the family, but
Yeah.
they're customers, you know, and like, how do you not blur the lines? Because sometimes if you blur the lines, it makes it hard to like put the
Yeah.
chop on
Yes.
Well,
somebody
because
when you have to.
unfortunately, exactly that. There are some that get that although this is a business, the martial arts school, the martial arts academy,
The relationship's deeper than
it's a
that.
different animal.
Yeah, it's a different type of relationship.
So some
Yeah.
some get that when they come in the
Yeah.
door, some get that. And some do from day one treat you
Say this is a transaction.
as a transaction. I mean,
Right.
So some
Right.
of them already kind of help you out a little bit in that,
Yeah.
in that regard. Because there's I don't know if you've seen it within like just Facebook and the like. There's a real big push right now for I'm the individual, I'm the customer. If I pay you, then I'll do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Right.
you,
Yeah.
you just deal with it.
Yeah.
And to an extent, they're correct. To an extent. I mean,
Right.
we don't do contracts here or anything else. As we tell people, if you're here, it's because I want you to, you know, it's you're here because you want to be here. And if you're not, then, you know, I don't want people in the building that are harboring ill feelings. Now, unfortunately, it still happens because they
Yeah.
build those relationships within the gym that they don't want to give up.
Right.
Which then typically becomes the issue is that when they choose to not make this their location, nobody ever leaves alone.
Right.
When they
Yeah.
leave,
Yeah.
it's always trying to pull, you
Yeah.
know, other people out. You know,
Right.
it's interesting how they don't want to say, you know, the words team. They don't want to use the words loyalty or things of that nature.
Yeah.
But yet they came in as an individual and want to leave as a group.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Interesting how that
so
works.
it's very
huh?
interesting that when they leave, they want to leave as a team. They want to leave as with all these connections and everything, which is what they actually said that they were against. You know,
Right.
they
Yeah.
didn't want to be part of this team. They didn't want to be the you know, I'm an individual. I can do what I want. Yeah, it's like you're
Right.
an individual, but when you say that, you don't do anything as an individual. Like even now,
Yeah.
you're saying you want to leave, but you're not leaving as an individual. You want to leave as a
Yeah.
group. You
Yeah.
know, it's
The other thing that kind of is interesting to me is that a student can choose to leave over just about anything. Like,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it could be a conflict or it could be, I just don't want to go anymore. So I'm not even going to show up. You know,
Right.
you have
Yeah.
those kinds of students. You have people just cancel their credit cards.
Yeah.
Right.
They just
Yeah.
ghost you, like gone. Now you don't know what the heck happened, right?
Right.
But if you tell somebody, hey, I don't think you're a good fit for this team,
Oh,
you are the worst person in the entire world. You
and you will
are.
probably get 10 fake reviews on Google.
Oh yeah, you're terrible. You're terrible. You're awful. But the reality is sometimes people are not a good fit, and you
Yeah.
Oh,
have
yeah.
like the sooner you recognize that, it sounds terrible, but long term, the sooner you recognize that, the better.
Yeah.
You know, and the sooner you deal with it, and I'm kind of, I think our approach is like it's got to be a win-win. Like
Oh, it has to be.
you have to be providing something when you come in the door, and I have to be providing something, you know, and as long as we could make that work, then I can make room for just about anybody on the mats. Like, you know, I've had lots of different personalities in there, and I try to make space for it without pushing on the culture too much,
Yeah.
you know, because some
Yep.
people have a lot of energy, you know, and you have to watch that energy because it could change the room.
Okay.
And if it happens enough, it'll actually change the temperature of your team, you know, or your environment. And that's not always a good thing. And as an owner and a leader, you kind of have to keep an eye on that stuff too, which is harder to deal with, to be honest, because nobody wants to hear that their vibe is fucking up the room.
So I mean, we're like, look, I mean, when people come in, like, if you guys like the culture of the gym, you know, it's like, you guys don't realize that's what we spend most of our time actually trying to hold and maintain,
is the culture.
Because every single person that comes in is like, oh, I love this, but, and then they want it to shift a little bit this way or a little bit that way. And if every single person is tugging on it to shift it, and then as the bigger personalities come in, they want to shift it a certain way. And the next thing you know, the gym culture that you've established that everybody loves becomes the gym culture that nobody wants. So they leave upset over the gym culture that they sabotage.
Yeah, right. That's interesting. You're right. I mean, though. You're right.
And so they leave, and then you're left trying to put the culture back to the way that everybody loved it in this process.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can't count the times I've had people come in the same thing and go like, I love it, but I wish you did more of this, or I wish there was less of that, or wouldn't it be cool if it was like this, or you should have this person do that. And it's like, oh, okay. You know?
Right. And you're like,
nice.
you're one voice of how many,
right.
You know, it's like, you know, and that's one of the hard parts. I mean, you know, sometimes they do have a good suggestion, or they echo a sentiment that you're already thinking
about.
Yeah.
And it causes a real change within the, but it echoes a sentiment that goes, again, thinking about how many people in 2 years from now, how many of those people that want you to change everything will still be there after the changes are made. So that it kind of changes the you know, how much you want to, because that was my biggest downfall originally, is I chased every single one of those wants and desires.
Right.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, what I ended up with was a bunch of people mad at me, you know, because I wasn't facilitating
their vision,
their exact vision. And I ended up walking into my own gym going, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah. Right.
I'm like,
right.
Like, I'm chasing their tails.
Yeah.
And yet they're still mad at me, and I don't even enjoy coming into my own school.
So when we opened this one, so we had a do-over, because we just shut down California and started fresh here.
Well, years later.
Yeah, we took years off because we were burnt. We were pissed off at the whole system. Like,
but I'll be honest, I loved it because it allowed us to concentrate on Christian's wrestling career in high school
for a little bit.
Yeah.
So I missed 2 days of Christian's wrestling.
Wow, that's pretty cool though.
Other than that, I mean, and that's only because I couldn't get the time off work. It was a 2-day tournament, like a Friday, Saturday. So during that time period off, you know,
we got to focus on the family.
We got to travel to all of these tournaments. We got to go do all that stuff. And it wasn't until after that we were like, all right, now let's go back and start looking at, now that when Christian said he wanted to fight.
And when we opened this gym, the one thing we both said is, let's open a gym that we would want to train in.
Yeah.
That was our vision going into this. That was our biggest, like, overriding theme.
We're gonna do the classes that
we're
excited about.
We're gonna build the culture that we want to train in.
We'll build the classes that we would want to train in. We want to do everything, you know, ultimately going down the pathway that that way, ultimately speaking, because again, if I'm just doing something because somebody else wants to do it and they're gone 6 months from now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are you even doing martial arts? You could just go, you can make more money doing something else that somebody wants you to do.
Make a buttload more money.
You know what I mean? It's like,
I mean,
yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. I think that experience sounds really similar to my mindset in the beginning as well, of like chasing, like cutting deals and chasing and accommodating and like not being flexible, being like overly flexible, to the point to where you walk in and you go like, dang, what are we doing? Like, how is this gonna move forward like this? It's kind of a mess. And it's hard. It's hard because if you don't change at all, I don't know if you have to change for the sake of change, but you are trying to improve.
yes.
You are trying to make adjustments. And if you're totally closed, that's not a great environment either. But if you're totally open, it's like, I guess that's where you really have to be a business owner and sit down and kind of plan
that's
out.
What I'm saying.
Like,
so now what we do is we make that choice, but we also still keep it based off of our passion.
Yeah.
So when somebody's like, man, it'd be really cool if, and then as we're talking about it, if we're
like, we don't want to teach that.
Yeah, right. Right.
Like, no, that's like one that kind of goes against our culture or whatever. So that's off the table. But then sometimes somebody else would come up with something that we're already maybe entertaining or the like.
Sure.
We're like, man, I've wanted to do that for a while. We just haven't figured out a way to plug it in. But if we could get that interest first, then launch it, it'd be way better than us trying to launch it from scratch, putting all that investment in it, which is typically the way it works. I mean,
right. And the last thing you want to do is launch something that you can't sustain.
Yeah.
We got a new thing, and 3 months later, it's like, oh yeah, we're not going to do that anymore. Yeah.
So
that's
with
true.
the California school, are you guys still owners of that school, or did you sell it off?
Yeah. No, we still own that. So
nice.
Yeah, I have one of my guys there kind of running it. And, that's been a challenge too, to be honest with you, of kind of understanding. One is I never planned to do any of this. So, that's a big deal too. But kind of calibrating, like, how do you manage a gym from a distance?
Yeah.
Right.
And how much communication do we need? How much process do we need? How much of everything do we need? And it's getting better, which is, I think it took us some time to kind of work it out, because I was there and I was kind of training up some people, and one of the guys knew for sure, the one that I hired, he knew for sure what was going to happen, and I was kind of gearing him up and putting him out in front of the group, like, hey, we're going to be moving in a few months and this person's taking over, and trying to transition as much as I could while I was still there, but once I stepped away, the challenge became like, how much support is needed back home. And I didn't want to, I'm always of the kind of approach that, like, I want to get out of people's way and let people do their thing and kind of trust, like, hey, you can do this. But at the same time, that's my baby.
Right. Exactly.
It's a little hard to go like, oh, just, but it's gotten better. So kind of the way we do it is, I'll set the curriculum out in Nashville and we'll go over it for 3 or 4 weeks. And then I will film it kind of as we're doing it.
Okay.
And then I will pass those films off to the instructors in Stockton. And we meet every couple of weeks on a Sunday morning and we kind of go over stuff, and then they follow up with the curriculum. So Stockton's about 4 weeks behind Nashville.
Okay. Because we've talked about it, because our gym is getting quite large. Okay, what's going to happen when we want to expand and get a second location? Like, how's that even going to work? Blah, blah, blah. That's actually a really good idea.
Yeah. Well, it was important for the people, and it's not that I'm so great or anything like that, but it's like, I was their instructor for a while, and they're used to like the way I was doing it, what I was doing. So I didn't want people to feel like I was just cutting it and going to be not involved at all.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
So one of the things is with the curriculum is making sure that people understand like, hey, Nashville and Stockton are on the same page. Like it's
Right.
one team, we're working together and we're trying to build it together. So, and then I was trying to go every 12 weeks, but it's been a little longer than that. But I go out to Stockton probably every 3 months or so.
Okay.
And I'll go out like on a Thursday night and I'll fly back home on a Sunday. And I just spend the weekend with them. I work with the instructors. I teach classes, go out to dinner after training and just
Keep
have
those
a
relationships.
presence. Yeah. And it's important to do. And they're still my students. I really like training with them. And some of them, when I stepped away from the main duties, I had lots of people go like, I want to do this. And oh man, I want to do that. And I told people, well, if you really want to help, you need to show up when Sam's there and you need to help him because he's driving now. He's flying the plane. And if you want to help, you're going to help me by helping him. And most people go like, no, that's not what I had in mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What? I gotta show up?
Yeah. What?
Right.
But
what?
A handful showed up, and those folks have made significant progress. Like I'm really happy with their development, and they've gotten noticeably better by becoming like more involved in what's going on, which is kind of cool. And I don't pay everybody there. It's kind of like some people get, some perks and some people are full-time, but in general, it's like, hey, this is master apprentice. Like, you're no longer a customer now. Like you're
right.
I'm giving you these opportunities as a way to kind of build you up and help you understand the game better. And it's working so far, and I've had students fly out to Nashville. I had like 9 guys come out here and stay with me.
Wow.
And it was really fun. And a couple more made another trip out. So far it's been good, and I'm really fortunate for that. And it's a testament to the people in the academy. There's good people there, and I'm trying to protect that as much as I can, really. Because, ultimately, like, do you remember who Paul Mendoza is? He's a Half Gracie guy in Modesto.
Yeah.
Been there
real familiar.
Forever. I think his school is like Dynamics Martial Arts or Dynamic Karate. And he told me something that was really interesting. And this was quite a few years ago. He said, he told me he had sold his gym or something like that. I don't know the exact details, but he sold and he just kept one little small, I think just the jiu-jitsu part or something like that. And he said, when I started, it was just me and 8 guys that really loved jiu-jitsu, and we trained all the time and it was great. And then it grew and it became a full thing with workouts and weight equipment and a big gym and this and that. And he's like, but when it all like shook out and everything came back around, he's like, it's basically me and those 8 guys. And he's like, and that was the best part of it anyway, and he's like, but it took me many years to kind of go through the whole cycle and figure it out. But I thought that was an interesting way to look at it. But at the same time, like, I'm trying to make money. Like, don't get me wrong. If I wasn't in business to make money, I would just have a gym that I train at with some good people and just go support someone else, to be honest with you. I think that I'm full American. I love capitalism. And if I could do jiu-jitsu and make money off it, hell yeah, I'm going to do it. Yeah.
Well, and that was probably my hardest hurdle to get over, is that it's okay for me as a martial artist, with everything I've invested in this sport, it's okay for me to make a profit teaching.
Hell yeah, it is.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It was really hard for him.
It's very I had to get over that concept. Well, the struggling artist, so to speak. I had to get over that mentality.
So he put me in charge of all the financials, so he could just focus on training and pull himself out off of that.
That's the way to do it. It's awesome. If there's especially if it's a husband and wife team and you guys are like going to work together on the same page. I know it's hard because me and my wife are exactly like, we run the business. We're always working together on it. And, it adds another another dimension to your relationship now, because you're not only married to this person, you're in business with them,
Right.
And it's hard to like turn it off. It's 11:30 at night, you're laying in bed and you're like, hey, did you call that person back about blah, blah, blah? It's like, oh my gosh. But at the same time, it allows you to kind of separate though, like, because when
Yes.
you're teaching and you're like you're out there, you're with the students, and you're doing all that, it's hard to also go like, oh, this guy hasn't paid in 2 months, or this person's credit card got blah blah blah, and then and have to deal with all that. It's not easy.
The best thing we did this year is we hired a receptionist, and
Nice.
she handles all the collections and checking
Nice.
everybody in, and
Nice.
you know, introducing new students and getting, so
Well, but
she's taken a big chunk of the bill collection
Yes.
part of it
Right.
off of our plate, so that
Nice.
if it takes some of that negative connotation away from us as instructors. And she does it in a very polite, she's just super bubbly. She's one of our parents that we hired. She's super bubbly and happy person, and she does it in a very nice way, but she'd be like, so the bill that I see over here, you want to come talk about it?
That's good though. I mean, hiring people to do the things that you can do, but maybe don't necessarily want to do, or it's not your favorite thing to do, or it pulls you away from being more effective somewhere else. It's hard when you own the business, because you're like, I don't want to have to pay somebody to do this. I can just do it myself. Right. But then you realize, like, doing everything yourself.
Profits were already thin. So you're going,
oh, now I'm going to pay this person. But it's balanced because we're collecting more.
Right.
Now
you're actually taking care of the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting.
It's an unfortunate. I've learned now it's an unfortunate quote that I've carried with me now for probably 20 plus years. And I can't even tell you the origins of the quote, but it was something saying to the effect of, you can either be a great martial artist or a great businessman. You can't be both.
Yeah.
And I've always held that for a long time, and it's shaped a lot of my decision-making process. And I think, truly speaking, that's one of the things that prevents, I mean, I hate the term, it gets thrown around a lot, McDojo and things of that nature. Because ultimately speaking, I've now been threatened by that parent to say, if you don't promote little Johnny, I'm pulling him from the program. And I told Melissa when we first started, before we even opened up our first academy, as I said, I don't care if I can't pay rent that month. I will not make a decision to promote, advance, or do anything to that level simply because it helps me pay rent.
Right.
And so unfortunately we've had to ask a few people to leave that tried to push us towards that type of, I pay you, so
I can verbatim. We had a mom tell him that she pays him so she can tell him what to do.
Wow.
And we're like,
it's pretty wild, huh?
Yeah,
I know it's.
And then we had to go, we love your kid, but bye-bye.
Yeah. It's hard. The thing I think that people that are getting into jiu-jitsu now don't maybe understand is that the reason why jiu-jitsu even took root and has a foundation is because it's so damn hard. It's real, it's hard. The promotions did not come fast. They didn't come often. They weren't early. They were hard earned. And you had to get beat up by Chuck Walker, you know what I mean? And all these people. And it was just like, dude, it wasn't easy. And now that kind of base is solidified, you have all these people who kind of came up that way. Right. And they're opening schools up, but this new batch of people coming in are like, they want it, but they want kind of the Instagram version of it, and not they don't want to show up to the dingy gym and train hard and take their lumps and really
for
learn.
6 years, like we all did back in the day.
Right. They don't.
Everybody's sponsored.
Now everybody's sponsored. Yeah.
How many black belts did you get to train under when you were training in jiu-jitsu? Like, I didn't get to train under any. No. Like Eric was a brown belt. It was forever. Everyone was just sitting forever. So
we opened our school as blue belts.
Exactly. So when people go like, I haven't been promoted or I should do, it's like, I just like, dude.
Now though, as I tell the caveat to people, they're like, well, dude, you shouldn't be mad at people for opening up as a blue belt because you opened up a blue belt. I'm like, dude, when I opened up as a blue belt, find another school around me.
There was no blue belts either. It was,
right.
It was like,
find another one around me with, Eric was the next one.
Yeah. Right.
And I opened up with his and ultimately, Caesar's okay. Knowing that I wasn't promoting anybody without Eric's
approval,
blessing, and ultimately without, and through him. And so, but it's like at the time period, find anybody around me within 15 to 20 miles. That even knew what jiu-jitsu was.
Right. It was much harder to find too. It was just more realistic too. It felt like harder training. Not that there's some really talented grapplers now. Not that there's some
the skill level today,
dude.
phenomenal.
There's some stuff popping off now. It's like, dude, I don't. It's pretty impressive.
But at the same time, though, I mean, but a tech guy 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I mean, he was still cutting edge. For his time period and the groundwork that they laid. And that's where I think some of the current generation really forgets.
They do.
That there's really cool stuff coming out right now, but it's only happening on the back of the giants that stood before them.
Right. Yeah, and I think that lesson gets lost a little bit now because everyone, like you say, everyone wants to be sponsored, everyone wants to be the next thing, and there's this perception that and maybe there is. For sure, there's more money in jiu-jitsu now, but this idea, like, I'm going to be a jiu-jitsu superstar, and like,
but the weird part is, though, the money's in the merch.
Right.
The money's in the rash guards and the spats and all that stuff. I mean, that's where the real money is. I mean, like seriously, if
the products,
if you were only in this game to make money, don't open a school.
No, right. I'd start a website or something. Right.
Do a small brand.
Doing
some basic designs. Like literally, you could just make a shirt that says jiu-jitsu and probably turn a bigger profit than most schools do. I mean,
you're right. You're right. I mean,
and way less work.
Yeah, somebody told me that. How'd they say this? They said that the jiu-jitsu business was like teaching jiu-jitsu. The actual teaching jiu-jitsu was like a third of the business. And then the other third was like just the operational day-to-day, cleaning the gym, making sure the laundry done. And then the other third was like the actual business side of the gym, the financials and blah, 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 blah. We think that like it's all jiu-jitsu, but it's just a slice. It's a slice. And if you have the jiu-jitsu right, but the other two things aren't right, you got to have at least two out of those three down, like really nailed. If you don't, it's hard to get ahead.
Well, so a little while ago, I was talking to people about, because there's always the debate, gi, no gi, no gi.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, in my personal opinion, the only valid argument that anybody, and I'm the only one that's really put out there to the best of my knowledge, but the only valid argument that anybody can say as to why no gi is superior is laundry.
Laundry. There you go.
Laundry.
Right.
Okay. Then I just had the epiphany because I remember back in the day watching a Billy Blanks martial arts movie where the kid's in trouble and the janitor comes to save him. And the janitor is like some martial arts master who just happens to be cleaning the gym.
Yeah.
And that epiphany came to me as I'm mopping the mats. And I'm like, son of a bitch, he was right.
I'm the
janitor. Right. Yeah. Right. The martial arts master cleaning the toilet, fixing the sink.
And I'm like, wow. I'm like, they were actually right.
I tell people that all the time, like, be a school owner. You're going to do jiu-jitsu all day. In reality, you're cleaning toilets, you're mopping the mats, you're doing laundry, you're sweeping the floor. And then occasionally you get to step on the mats and actually do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you also you know, because stepping on the mats and doing jiu-jitsu was the big thing that even got you here, you know, and
Yeah.
that used to be 90% of what you were doing, you know. I still have this like, hey, I don't want to like be shitty on the mats though, because I'm not spending enough time training or you know. And then hey, let's be realistic, like you get over 40 years old and like your game isn't your game anymore. Like it starts to change and you're like, damn, you know, the competition keeps getting younger. So you have to kind of deal with that mindset too, and kind of recalibrate that and set your expectations.
Think about, and that's an interesting aspect of it as well. I kind of put a post out just the other day. Okay, so I'm 50 now. We're getting ready to do PANS since it's here in Florida. And I got a couple other competitions in sight for this year. You know, we typically do Master Worlds as well. Okay, now think about, take your average boxing gym, take your average karate guy, take your average whatever, put him at 50 years old.
Are they still competing?
Oh God, no. Never.
No.
Never. It's most of the time they're not competing even when they're younger. Like a lot of times they're not.
And that's where I was like, man, I was like, you know what? We don't get truly enough credit.
No.
We love to kill the generation that came in front of us. We love to, like, we're on their heels to try to tap them, which are on their heels to try to beat them and surpass them. As an instructor, that's what I want. I want my students to surpass me in every way, shape, and form. You know, because I know that's one of the other parts. Judo, karate, boxing, all of these other sports, all these other, you know, whatever. Okay. One, what are they doing to advance their own knowledge? Okay. Once they reach a certain level, virtually zero. These sports have been around for so long and are so canonized within what they do.
Right.
Jiu-jitsu, since it launched after UFC 1 and started to catch fire,
it's constantly evolving.
Day to day, year to year, it is not the same sport. The techniques are ever evolving. And so, again, that's another part, is when you have that, once you get your black belt, man, you are not done. Your knowledge base, you better be training. Yeah. Because like I said, the game is changing. If you look at boxing today, I'm not taking anything away from boxing or the canonized sports, but if you look at judo from 30 years ago, the techniques are still pretty much the same. The requirements are still pretty much the same. We've evolved as athletes, and things of that nature, but you're not seeing like all of a sudden somebody's like, whoa, there's a new fucking throw out there right now that nobody's ever seen before.
If anything, in martial arts like judo, there's less. They're taking out of judo, not adding to it. Yeah. I mean, that's interesting.
But jiu-jitsu is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
The right now, man, I mean, the new, with the videos coming out every year.
People come in all the time like, oh, I saw this new move on YouTube. It's called the blah, 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 blah. I'm like, you got to show me. I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Right.
And then they show you and you're like, oh, okay. No. I know what this is.
Yeah. Now, granted, there's a lot of older techniques that are trying to be relaunched.
Yeah, under different names. Yeah, I've noticed that too. Isn't that wild?
I mean, like
sometimes I'll hear somebody, they'll do something and they'll go like, this is called this, and I'll go, oh, when I learned it was called that, like something different. You know what I mean?
Or they'll be like, check out this new technique I came up with. And you're like,
yeah,
like, dude, I was doing that as a white belt.
I still haven't invented any techniques that I haven't come across already.
Right.
And I don't know if I've ever had somebody show me something that they invented that I didn't already, or wasn't just a variation of something else. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's where we've always told people our mentality has always been, and again, even this is not my ideology. It's been espoused by other people as well. I like to formally out here, I like to refer to myself as the American Danaher without the accent or the higher education.
Right.
because I get a lot of students coming in and go, oh man, I was watching a Danaher video and basically he said the same thing that you just said in class like last month.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but I did it in 20 words or less. I mean, but it's the idea that you don't create moves, you discover.
Sure.
You discover a move. I don't get to lay claim to it.
Yeah.
That even at the time period when rubber guard was first coming out, Nick, Nate, other guys were coming. It's like this. Like it's like suddenly a bunch of people realized that they could bend in certain ways, and then the question became, what direction did it go?
Right.
Who went deep dive? Who did what? Who took it to a big stage?
Who was able to systemize it?
Who was able to systemize it? Things of that nature.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of people like you said, you see something and you're like, oh man, yeah, I saw that over here, or I kind of first learned that over here, or I kind of did it over here.
Yeah.
And you kind of see that things kind of fired off in pockets all over the place.
Yeah.
And then eventually they start to lap over each other.
Cross-pollinate. Yeah.
Right. Now, some looked at it and said, that's awesome. That doesn't quite fit into our
game
pantheon of techniques. And so let's kind of shy away from it a little bit. And others were like, nope, let's deep dive. And that's with everything. I mean, whether you're a Kimura trap player, whether you're a rubber guardian, whether you're, I mean, it just depends on now. I mean, how many people are out there training EBI overtime techniques?
Right.
Just overtime techniques.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's,
it's pretty crazy. I mean, competition always will shape the martial art, right?
Yes.
It'll always have an influence on it 100%. I think if it's overly influential on a school, it could be probably harmful, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there are some schools that are competitive schools. Yeah. And if you really want to be a competitor, those competitor schools are pretty good schools. But if you're like a regular dude that sits at a desk and you want to go train, sometimes those schools aren't the greatest environments in terms of like, hey, the culture is we're getting after it. We're all competing. We're going hardcore all the time. That's not for everybody. Right. That's not even, most people that even do jiu-jitsu aren't even real competitors. You know what I mean? Like they do one tournament, 2 tournaments, and they're like, okay, I did it. Yeah. It's pretty interesting. I like John Danaher a lot. I mean, what I do is I try to get my information from everybody.
Yes.
You know, I try not to be too dogmatic about it. But when I watch Danaher, I'll give you a tip. This is how you get through all the Danaher videos without, you know, wanting to poke your eye out, because he's very slow when he talks.
Right.
I watch, and I'm not kidding, I watch him in double speed. So I speed him up and I watch him at 2 times the speed, and he talks really fast like this, and then it's like not that bad. You get through the video pretty quickly. Yeah. That's the way to do that.
So like Gordon Ryan, I mean, arguably best living grappler, you know, out there right now.
Mm-hmm.
But also, again, so he's taking, I mean, obviously he's directly with Danaher.
Yeah.
And so when he does his, it's like Danaher light. It's an abbreviated instructional of Danaher. It's taking away for some people, Danaher, they love that super deep dive. I mean, they know that when your pinky goes here, it fires off certain synapses in the brain, and and they love that.
Right.
You know, and for other people, you know, it's too much. You know, too much. So when they look balance, so when they look at like the same technique done, but by like Gordon Ryan or somebody else, they're like, all right, this is really close to the root of Danaher, but he's kind of shaving off, you know, all the extra stuff.
He's making it a little more palatable. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, I feel you. Which is interesting because like I like Marcelo Garcia. I like to watch some of his stuff, but if you watch him teach and explain things, completely opposite of Danaher.
Yes.
One is the language barrier, but there's just a lot of like him just showing things and going like, just like just get it in and grab. It's not like Danaher's like real technical but
well, so that when I teach, and this is where I kind of explain to some of the people, because it's weird. Like I think I deliberately don't do super deep dive in my instructionals. Now, I've heard from other guest people that have come in, they're like, wow, I really love the way he teaches. He's so deep in his teaching. And I feel like I deliberately don't go deep. So it's also interesting how different people interpret it. But like I tell people, I'm like, look, I mean, I know that yellow and blue make green. Okay. I know this, and I can tell you this. But if I give you yellow and I give you blue and I give you green, okay, and then I provide you an opportunity where I know on your plate that I can watch you manipulate yellow and blue, and I can watch you discover green.
Right.
Like for me, those personal discoveries stuck for life.
Right. They do. You're right.
Way deeper. I mean, every once in a while you get that epiphany that somebody gives to you that blows your mind every once in a while. But you can probably count those epiphanies on one hand.
Yeah.
But how many times did you make a discovery or were led to make a discovery that you're like, man, that this and this happened and all of a sudden it just clicked for me, like how many times when you're showing a technique, does somebody come up to you and it's like, hell, man, hey, it looks like from here that I could just transition right into this armbar. They're like, yeah, you could.
Yeah, right.
And guess where that person's about to head?
Yeah, right.
They put one and one together.
Yeah. The brain must store that kind of information. It must have some additional pointers to it or a deeper context, it seems like. Because you're right, the things that you discover on your own or that they feel like kind of originated from your work, even if someone led you to it and you didn't realize they led you to it, they do seem to stick with you longer. Yeah. The other thing that, and I want to get your opinion on this, that I've started to think about is that, we show moves and we show them like, put your hand here, put your arm here, do this, do that, blah, blah, blah. Okay, it's great. And we practice them mechanically and we try to get the mechanics down. And then we get out into the wild, like resistance or some live drill, and then we're trying to do it. And when we do it, it's never as clean or as accurate as when we drill it, to the point that I'm starting to take the approach that's like, hey, there's variance in what you can do to make this technique work. Now, there's some non-negotiable things like, hey, if I'm going to put you in an arm bar, I need your elbow past a certain point on my hip, or it's not an arm bar. It's just like, it's something else at that point. But beyond that, if I grip your hand like this, or I hug it, or I do like whatever you got to do to make it work, do that shit to make it work. Like, I'll show you some ways that I like that work for me, but they're negotiable, because in the heat of the battle, we learn in jiu-jitsu to take what we can get. You know what I mean? And so I'm trying to be less dogmatic with the technique in terms of the things that are negotiable. Like, hey, it's not a big deal if your hand's not exactly like mine, as long as your hip is in the right place. But because I feel like I learned a lot, and a lot of the teaching is always like every aspect of the technique is given equal weighting. Your hand here, your leg here, your foot here, but you start to learn like it's not, right? Like a lot of it's like not as big of a deal as long as that one or two things is exact. So yeah.
So
that was an eye-opener.
I try to make it a point quite a bit when I'm teaching to say A is a preference, B is a preference, C is required.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
A is interchangeable. You can change that thing out, how you want to grip it. A grip is required, but what grip you choose to use, preferential. This piece, preferential. We can rotate this thing in and out. But this portion, this is where the magic happens. So like you said, the elbow needing to be at or above the hip. That is a requirement. If it's below,
Right.
then you're not
Right.
isolating the elbow. You're probably
Right.
going to break the forearm, such as Tim Sylvia or something of that nature. You're probably, you're going to be struggling to do a technique.
Yeah.
So then what I tell people is, because it used to bug the shit out of me, because I don't have a big name on the scene. I'm not a guy that's been out there world champion or whatever, but I have a lot of knowledge.
Yeah.
And so you go in there, and this is, started off, YouTube didn't even exist. Then when YouTube did exist, this stuff wasn't out there. People held jujitsu tight to their chest.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Everything else. So when I'm going through and I teach a technique, and then somebody's like, oh, well, I was watching a video with fill in the blank of whatever top champion at the time, and he did it this way.
Right.
Like almost like insinuating that the way you're doing is wrong and the other way was superior, and that's what really started me going down that dive of preferential, what's required, what's not required, and telling people, look, I'm like, a lot of people are going to tell you this is exactly the way it needs to be done. I said, and if somebody tells you that this is exactly the way it needs to be done, and there's no variation whatsoever, they're probably trying to sell you something, trying to sell you a DVD or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but as I told them, I said, but what I do find is what's next dictates this grip versus this grip versus this grip, because this grip, based on where I'm going, requires a transition that's not clean, and I have to let go. It's not a smooth transition.
Interesting. Yeah.
That's why that's why it's better to use this grip than that grip, because in my lesson plan, I'm going from here to here, and then theirs, they went from here to here.
Right.
So,
right.
So the initial setup, the initial grip, their preference, the preference starts to become a little bit more dictated on what roads are they going down?
Where you going?
Where are they going? Because like you were talking about in sports, and in jiu-jitsu, rules dictate the efficiencies and effectiveness. The rules dictate that, because if you go into a competition that says you can't do, whatever technique, okay, then most of the things that are around that little branch fall off.
Right.
And anything that starts to connect to it falls off, and all of a sudden other branches become super powerful.
Right.
And the moment you put that rule back in, the branches that flourished die off, and this other branch opens back up. And so the rules dictate. Judo, you win by throw or pin, or submission, but mostly by throw. So ergo, where do you invest all of your time? You put it into throws. And then even when you land on the ground, you're not given that much time. So why would they invest time in any of these things? And so even though a lot of these sports look and feel very similar, it's kind of like the sub-only genres when they were first introduced, with this amazing idea that it was going to make people become very submission heavy.
Yeah.
And I argue, did it?
It made everyone defensive.
Everyone went defensive, yes.
I know, right.
Because there was no penalty.
Right. Interesting,
the only penalty was actually in becoming aggressive, that you would open yourself up.
Right, to getting submitted.
And so they arguably backed off. And when you watch those matches, again, its original idea and concept of that it was going to make everybody submission heavy, when people started to realize that it could either end in a draw or it could end in something other than a submission, it started to change a dynamic. It started to go down a slightly different pathway.
But EBI did the same thing, right? We saw the same exact thing in EBI, where people originally were kind of going for the sub, and then once they started to understand the nature of the overtime rules, it's like, oh, I could just kind of
the nature of the beast is to always exploit the rules
Of course.
to your advantage.
Of
Always.
course.
So the rules will always dictate what becomes effective.
Yeah, that's true. So I think when you're teaching, you have to get that approach to your students too. Like the rules in one sense could be like, are you grappling in your gym, at open mat, or are you competing, or are you at the grocery store? Right. Because depending on the rules are different and the settings different, and that should dictate the techniques that you're going to use. And if you're going to be a black belt in jiu-jitsu, I think you have to have that ability to go, this context is this context is this, and that context is that. Right. Which is kind of gets lost a little bit. I think if people get too sports focused or too self-defense focused or too, you got to kind of learn how to go in and out of all those dimensions and connect them together.
Dave tells our guys all the time that if he does his job right, in the middle of a roll, he could shout out a new rule and they should be able to adapt on the spot.
To whatever it is.
To whatever it is.
Whatever it is. It shouldn't matter. So I can't stand the people that, when you're talking to them and they're like, oh, I was told that, in this, whatever, let's say you go to a guest school and that guest school says, we don't do leg locks.
Right.
Okay. Now, hopefully you don't go to a school of that nature. Hopefully they do allow leg locks. But again, my recommendation to everybody is always talk to your partner about what level that they are or are not willing to go. But let's say, imagine you go in and they say, let's say no heel hooks. And the first thing you do is in the middle of a roll is you reap and go searching for the heel. And you're like, oh, dude, I forgot. Like, what do you mean you forgot?
Yeah. Right.
I mean,
right. I couldn't remember, man.
I mean,
yeah, that's interesting. I feel the same way when people come in and they go, oh, I can never train in the gi, or I only train in the gi, or I only train with strikes, or whatever. It's such a weird, closed-minded idea to go like, I guess the weird thing is like jiu-jitsu is a martial art and it's a sport. And on the no-gi side, the gi side feels like it still has a strong martial arts feeling, I think, because the uniform and the belts, and the no-gi side feels like it has more of a sports feeling to it, like it's grappling and guys are wrestling and there's a little less of the martial arts side, but it is a martial art.
Yes.
And because it's a martial art, that means like we have to approach it like martial artists, which is, I can't put it in a tiny little box.
Correct.
Like the nature of jiu-jitsu is that there's no pins. And because you can't pin to get the win, it opens up a whole like you talked earlier how the one generation is always trying to eat the next in jiu-jitsu. Like they're all, it's like, are coming for you. But in the others, you kind of see it less. Like I think the young generation tries to eat the older generation through innovation a lot of times. Like they're trying to come up with new stuff, do different things.
Yes.
You don't see that as much in judo and wrestling. You see a younger generation.
You see a reverence for the Dan Gables. You see a reverence for the Connors. You see a reverence for the Jack Johnsons in boxing, the Muhammad Alis and things of that nature. But you also don't see the innovation within those sports as well.
And I think what it does is it pushes the martial art, where the other ones are just kind of like, they don't grow as much because the rule set, it dictates, like you said, the perfect word, you said they're canonized already. It's like, this is how it is and that's it. Whereas jiu-jitsu goes like, okay, you put me on my back, now what? Now what are we going to do? Like, because it's not over, we're going to keep going. And by virtue of that, it opens up a whole, whole nother endless amount of possibilities that could take place, which is really neat. That's one of the things I really love about jiu-jitsu is like, man, we could keep fighting, like it's not over yet. Obviously, if someone's throwing strikes and stuff, it certainly would change it. But yeah, I hate the closed-mindedness about it. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we're all grown ass adults and we're still wrestling and grappling and like it's awesome, you know. It's I know we're in business and we're making money and trying to eat and pay bills, and that adds a very serious reality.
So we typically do what we call T-jitsu or t-shirt jiu-jitsu. Because
oh nice, yeah.
To me, the argument of which one is more realistic for the street. Okay?
Yeah.
I don't believe either one of them is fully realistic for the street. No gi is very unrealistic because you're not allowed to grab anything.
So unless you're going to be fighting naked people.
Right. Yeah.
So, and then the gi is also unrealistic because depending on where you live, nobody's wearing that much.
No,
clothing.
Wait, you mean nobody's wearing a jacket with a belt stitched around it as the lapel and you drapes around their neck?
So we do T-jitsu, t-shirt jiu-jitsu. So here in Florida, you are more likely to run into somebody if you're going to have an altercation. That's probably going to be jeans and a t-shirt,
or shorts
and a t-shirt,
and flip-flops.
Okay. So if they're wearing jeans are a relatively good symbiote for gi pants.
Yeah.
So I mean, but realistically speaking, I mean, other than guard passing and a few handful of techniques, the pants are a non sequitur. I mean, if we look at how many techniques are required that require the pants,
not as many.
As many. And we can usually alter a few grips here and there.
Yeah.
But definitively speaking, though, there are a few very unique chokes specifically.
Yeah.
That are gi centric, that don't exist if the gi or the t-shirt don't exist. I actually find the t-shirt to be a better choker than the gi.
Oh man, yeah.
Oh, it's brutal.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
there's a bunch of t-shirt chokes. Yeah.
I got a couple students that in a live no gi roll, maybe I catch them once in a 5-minute match with that stupid t-shirt on. You know, I'm catching them 6, 7, 8 times.
Right.
You know, just because my knowledge of how to manipulate that garment around their neck is different, even when they're in good position of being able to manipulate it. You know, it's a little bit. So we do every once in a while. So actually, we need to schedule another one to do that, just to kind of show people like, look, this is probably the reality of if you get into a real fight. This is probably the reality. And then obviously there's going to be some strikes that would need to be thrown in there if we're talking about a real street fight.
Right.
You know, a real altercation is going to happen outside of the padded nets. I mean,
right. Which is chaos. You know, in a way, in I have students that are like, oh man, I've been training for 6 months and I feel more confident. Like if something happened, and I tell them like, no. Like, dude, I'm glad you feel confident, and that's awesome. And if your back is up against the wall, you have to protect yourself, but don't kid yourself. Like fighting in the streets you don't know what's going to happen. Like there's so many dimensions to what could happen. And it's not, you know, like Chuck always was telling us, you know, it's just not the fight. You got to win the fight after the fight. Like you might get sued. You might be outcast in your society now because maybe you really were defending yourself, but you something happened. That guy hit his head. He's dead now. Right. And now you're all over the news as a guy that killed some guy, right? Or you know, like there's a lot of things that could happen that
or the opposite. This was years ago. Was it San Francisco? Alex Gong. That I guess what was it? Like his car got stolen in front of his academy or something like that. I guess he's like gloved up, running down. Yeah. And the students watch him get shot.
Shot him, yeah.
Confronting, you know, the guy that like stole his car or something like that.
Right. I mean, it doesn't happen a lot. A lot of people get in fights and nothing ever. It's just a good old fisticuffs, and you know, you walk away and that's it. But it does happen, and I feel like when I'm teaching, like I want everyone to learn, but I also want them to be very, very cognizant that if they get in a real scrap, like it could have dire consequences.
Oh, yeah.
That it's, you know what I mean? Because some people kind of take it they're like, I'm going to use my new jiu-jitsu power on somebody. It's like, maybe,
Also,
you know?
like we were we were just doing a self-defense seminar the other last week, and I was telling them, look, the way it was told to me, the definition of a real fight: one or all members of the altercation are changed forever.
Yeah.
Financially, legally, physically,
mentally.
Yeah.
I mean, but
right.
In a two-person or even a multi-person or whatever, one, both, or everyone is potentially changed forever in a real fight. We're not talking about a sport fight. We're not talking about anything of that nature, because as long as there's rules, it's a sport.
Right.
A real fight does not have those limitations.
You
know,
right.
So that's the way it was defined to me, is not whether or not we're punching or kicking, or whether or not we're doing jiu-jitsu or whatever, but just the what's happening in that fight. One,
100%.
both, or all are forever changed.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Well, man, dude, I hate to jump off, but
I know
I'm running up
we went a
against
little
it now.
long.
Yeah.
No, that's okay.
Awesome talk, though.
I love
But
talking.
yeah, definitely.
To you guys,
we were talking a little bit. We can continue offline. Definitely
sure.
would love to. Because our student Matthew went up there, trained with you. Said he had an absolute blast of a time, man. Said he loved it.
That's awesome.
He said he travels through that area. I don't know with what frequency, but he definitely says that he definitely wants to stop by.
He's always welcome. He was pretty cool. That was a stressful day, but he's a good dude. Yeah, it all worked out. So no, that's awesome. Yeah,
and then
dude,
also we'd love to
again,
try to get something scheduled up.
For sure.
Nashville's not that far away.
No.
Seeing if there's some time that you and Stella would love to come down and
dude, that'd be awesome.
Let
me chat with her and look at the calendar, and maybe I'll get back to you with some like time frames. You know what I mean? That'd be cool.
Which also, weirdly, we're learning Dave Terrell, which we ran into him locally. Dave Terrell has family in our area. Oh,
wow. That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah. We ran into him at a tournament. He stood there and he's giving me this weird look. I'm standing there, I'm looking at him. I'm like, why is this dude looking at me weird? And I'm like, oh shit. Like, that's Dave Terrell. I'm like, what is he doing out here? And he's like, man, you didn't recognize me. I'm like, why would I expect to see you out here? I mean,
what a beast he is too, man. Jesus. Dave Terrell. Solid grappler, dude.
But yeah, talk to Stella, because I'd love to have you guys out. I love we've had I don't know if you're familiar with Brian Brown. He has Jacksonville.
Jacksonville,
I'm headed up there in about a month, because he's got his little training camp up there. He's got Jean-Jacques coming in.
Wow, that's awesome.
Got a couple other guys. Yeah, that's really why I'm going up there. But I also like to add to my own knowledge base, obviously.
Heck yeah.
But once I heard Jean-Jacques was going to be there, I'm like,
Dave's like, I gotta go.
I'm like,
you don't want to miss that. Yeah, that's a real legend, man, for sure. Yeah, that sounds good. I'll hit you up. Thanks for the invite, man. It's always a pleasure to talk to you guys. I'm glad you guys are still at it, man, kicking ass. So good job.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we'll see you.
Awesome, man. Have a good one.
Bye.
You too.